Hey Meachum Village, it's Aneesa. Today we're going to talk about how to balance being a homemaker and a working mom. So the key to balance is all about priorities and having the right priorities. So the 3 points that I want to share with you today are around mindset, intentionality, and then I'm going to end with giving you some working mom tips. And so by working mom, I am talking to mothers who either work outside of the home, whether you have a traditional W-2 job or you own a business, you are required to be outside of your home to make that money. I'm also talking to moms who work from home. So you are able to do your job at home. You don't have to leave, maybe ever, or very minimally for meetings or something like that. And then we know that there is another category of moms who might be full-time stay-at-home moms, and that is your job. So you're not necessarily bringing in income in this situation. Your full-time focus and your full-time job is being a stay-at-home mom and caring for your children and the home. I think there are things in this video that can help women in each category, but I am primarily going to be talking to those who either are leaving the home to work a job or are working a job from the home, whether it is, again, a W-2 job or a business. And so my career path over the last 20 years has been in education. So I started out as a teacher. Charles and I had our first son after about 4 years of marriage. And by then I had gotten a good handle on being a teacher and the demands of being a teacher and all of that. And our son did go to daycare. I returned to work after he was born. And that particular field worked nicely with our family setup at that time. I felt like I was able to be home, early enough to still have plenty of time with my son. And, I had got a good handle on, grading and things like that. And so my weekends were pretty free and clear. And then, of course, there's all the breaks, right? And so by the time my son entered school, I was home when he was home. So, winter break, spring break, all of the holidays and things like that. And so my particular journey in my career, kind of lent itself to how we structured our family. It really wasn't until we had our second child where I started feeling more pressure and more of a demand on my time, quite naturally with a second baby, in terms of, wow, how can I be more available? What is it that I need to be doing to be more available? And by the time our second child was born, I had moved up in my field. So when our second child was born, at that time, I was an instructional coach. And it still worked nicely. It was actually a little bit more flexible than being a teacher in some ways. I didn't get the summers off anymore and things like that, but I had PTO and, time that I could take off. And then I continued to move up in my career and became a principal. And that is when I was like, whoa, okay. The demand of being a principal is just different than being a teacher or an instructional coach or even an assistant principal, which I was for a little bit as well. And so when I became a principal, it was hard to keep up with everything. It was hard to keep up with being a homemaker. It was hard to keep up with, my duties as a wife and as a mother, mainly because I was tired. I had a stressful job at that point. And so by the time I got home from work, I'm like, cook what? Clean what? Have sex with who? I'm like, oh, what do you mean? And so a lot of those things got pushed to the weekend or just neglected, for periods of time. Or we were spending money on outsourcing. So what really changed my mindset, my husband and I had always, talked about if we could start over, we would, set things up a little differently. but you have to have the right mindset for that, right? And so what really, made me realize that, okay, something has to shift was the pandemic that started in 2020. And so, of course, everyone is home, everyone's remote. At that time, I was a principal, so I'm running a remote school, which was very, very challenging. But what it did do is it gave me and my family this taste of having more autonomy over your time and being able to do things like, cook dinner, every night, keep the house the way that I want it kept, having just, more energy to play with my kids and, to be with my husband and things like that. And so I was like, I really would love to transition into, a role or a job that would give me more flexibility. And, for me, I didn't know exactly what that meant. I had, I was praying and searching and things like that. And long story short, I was able to transition into a leadership role that did just that. And so currently I have a lot more flexibility with my time, and it has just been life changing. And I will say, I'm not one to say what I would never do, but it would be very, very hard to go back to, a traditional, 9 to 5. And so even now, as I still work, for someone else in the field of education, I am considering like, what are some shifts or how do I need to be preparing, for the future so that I can, continue to have options and have autonomy, over my time. And so bottom line, what I realized is that time is your most valuable asset. Time to spend with your family, time to, take care of your domestic duties, time to invest in your health, time to invest in your future, whatever it is that you're passionate about, time for ministry, right? And so when your lifestyle doesn't support that, something has to sit on the back burner, right? Or you shift, right? This is on the back burner now, and then maybe I put it to the front later, and so on. And so hindsight is always 2020. And so for those of you who are like, well, there's no way I could just quit working, or I can't take a pay cut, or I don't know how to, start a business that would supplement, my income and things of that nature. What I would say is that there is a way. It might not necessarily be easy, and it is going to take hard work, but you have to decide what it is you want and how you want to set up your family and go after those things, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is mindset. And so overall, to change your mindset in this area, I'm going to encourage you to read Proverbs 31. And so first and foremost, your husband, children, and your home are your first priority and your first ministry, your family duties and your domestic duties. And so as a working mom, you want to be able to set your life up if you're choosing to work outside of the home or even choosing to work in the home. Because I will say this, even having a business, you may or may not have more autonomy over your time. You'll probably have more autonomy over your time than working a 9 to 5, but running a business is not for the weak. And there are plenty of CEOs and business owners that are still away from their families and still missing what's most important. And so it's not just as simple as do this, not that, right? You really have to be intentional about how you're setting up your life, whether it's, choosing to work a traditional job or even going the business route. How are you setting up both? What are you going after that's going to really allow you to prioritize your husband, children, and home? And so I just want to highlight Proverbs 31 here. Go back and read it for yourself. But she was a woman of integrity. She was a blessing to her husband. She was skilled and resourceful. She was an early riser and healthy. She was a planner and project manager. She was a strategic and successful businesswoman. She was hospitable and caring. She was presentable, so she looked good, okay? She married well. Her husband sat at the city gates. She was confident. She didn't fear the future. She laughed and in terms of the fear of the future. She was wise. She was an instructor. She was discerning. She had a strong work ethic, and she was respected by her husband and children. And as I'm like rereading, Proverbs 31 and thinking about it in terms of this teaching, I'm like, forget keeping up with the Kardashians. We need to keep up with this Proverbs 31 woman, okay? And so the first thing to change your mindset is to gain an understanding of your role. Gain an understanding of your role as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a homemaker, and what those family and domestic duties entail, right? And then you have to make a decision to accept the Proverbs 31 lifestyle. Early riser. Again, I say, early riser. That alone makes people cringe, right? The thought of waking up early to take care of tasks and set your family up for the day, right? And so you have to, again, decide that you're going to be about that life. You're going to be about that Proverbs 31 lifestyle. And what does that look like in your household and for you? And then you need to build capacity, because some of these things, a lot of these things, quite frankly, we were just not taught to do. They may have not been modeled for us. And so we have to build capacity in the areas of the Proverbs 31 lifestyle that we're lacking in. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is intentionality. And so you have to create the life you want. And so if you want more time, then you have to think about what's going to get me more time. Is it, working from home? Is it going part-time? Is it not working at all and just completely focusing on being a stay-at-home wife or a stay-at-home mom? And that might not come without sacrifice, right? Especially if you're already at a certain point in your career or your business. You might have to think about scaling back if that's what you and your family decide to do. I will say that if you're not married yet, or if you're newly married, set up your household in the way that will position you to focus on your husband and family, because it's much easier. I'll say it like this. It's harder to scale back in some regards than it is to, set the standard. So set the standard before, you have responsibilities and before you have a lifestyle that you're accustomed to. Set the standard first. And then again, if you're already at a certain place, think about, where can we cut back? Do we have to move? What is it that we have to do if this is the life that we want? Also, just thinking about, what is the best scenario for you and your household? The best scenario may be, you're not working out of the home at all. You're going to, so you're going to, start looking for remote jobs, or you're going to start that business that you've been thinking about starting, right? And so you have to really be intentional about those decisions. If you do work out of the home, then you need to be intentional about choosing a job, career, or business pursuit that allows you to have flexible and good control over your time and over your emotions as well. Because a lot of times it's not just time that also impacts how we are showing up at home, it's also our stress levels as well. So you might be working from home, but if your job is still stressful or your business is still stressful, it's still going to impact how you show up for your husband, your children, and for yourself. Okay, so now I want to give you some working mom tips. So these are tips to help you, and I'm going to quickly go through these tips, and then we'll be finished. So block and protect your time, or protect and block your time. I read that backwards. So protect and block your time. Whatever category you're in, if you work out of the home, work from home, or if you are a stay-at-home mom or wife, you need to protect and block your time. So what that looks like is saying, I don't do meetings until 10 a.m. Or every Friday from this time to this time is my meal prep time. So you have to just be serious about it. You have to treat it like a standing appointment that no one can interrupt. One of the things that I do for the weekend, unless it's a milestone event, we're probably not committing to anything that starts before 1 or 2 o'clock on a Saturday, because that gives us a chance to just start the weekend slow, to enjoy the morning. We can go have breakfast. We can go take the kids to the park. We can, do so much just by, again, pushing commitments back to, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. That's one of the things that I do to protect and block my time. All right, number 2, outsource domestic duties. And so if you are financially able and it makes sense for your household, hire someone to do the cleaning. Look into a meal service delivery program. Hire someone to wash your laundry and things of that nature. There are lots of things that you can outsource to take some of those things off your plate. And guess what? This is biblical. If you read Proverbs 31, that woman had handmaidens, okay? And she, didn't necessarily have what we would call a traditional 9-to-5 job, and she still had help as a homemaker as her full-time job. So it is okay to have outside help. Number 3, meal prep. And so this can be very, very helpful. It might take a chunk of time on your weekend, but it can be very helpful for you during the week to only have to warm food instead of starting things from scratch. And it also helps you save money and be more healthy when you have meals that are ready and available to go. Number 4, build a village. Who are the people in your life that can help you, that can, watch your kids when you need to run to the store, or, that you can be socializing with and having fellowship with, so that you're still enjoying life and they can, help relieve some of the burden. And then the last one I would say is get out of debt. And so, this is probably the most important one and the foundation of them all. And that's kind of why I put it at the end, is that when you don't have debt, you have more options. So when you don't have debt looming over your head, then you have more options to scale back. If you ever wanted to, work part-time or not work at all outside of the home, you want to be in a place financially where you can do that. So there you have it. How to balance being a homemaker and a working mom. We want to focus on mindset, intentionality, and then we want to implement some of those tips to make it a little bit more manageable. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, visit our website for more resources on marriage and family. And please remember, what God has put together, let no one separate. Thank you, and see you next time.